Another very interesting theme, and strictly related to the previous ones, is about postures. How can we decode them? And how we can do that without being reductive or interpretative. In fact, there are a lot of theories about postures and emotions, postures and personalities, but it is impossible to find out just a single scientific study confirming one of them. This is because it's a real complex theme, and I don't mean that these theories are wrong, but maybe they are partial or they are not 100% functioning all the times we try to apply them. We have to find some more broader criteria or to understand how we can find a way to make a correct hypothesis, how to define them, and how to work, because I think understanding postures and emotion is funny, is interesting, but has to be useful, and is useful if we can in some way use these hints to empower our psychotherapy, counseling, developmental approaches. So, one thing that we can say for sure is that we can't judge a static posture. Looking at someone still, looking at a picture, it is not possible. Why? Because simply there is a huge number of variables, most of them with no psychological correlation, or at least a direct one. So what can we do? We have to notice what and when changes in postures happen. We have to find the adaptation schemas and break them down to understand what is useful for, it is not no more useful, and how to disrupt it in a constructive way to free more energies and to go back to our minimum free energy principle. So we have some energy allocated in bad postures, we have to free them, and so we can free also the emotion related to them. Consider this situation. It's night. We are going through a very narrow alley. In front of us there is a huge man, probably drunk. When we are close to him, instinctively we move forward the shoulder near to him and we tilt our head in the same direction, and we speed up our walk. What have we done? We protected the throat, the abdomen, placing strong muscles and large bones before the rest of the body. The anteposition of the shoulder is an innate protective behavior. If we notice this kind of movement, we could advance the hypothesis that an interpersonal defensive mechanism is active right now. On the contrary, if we see a man with a static anteposition of the shoulder, his shoulder is always here, it's not in response to something outside or inside. We are not able to say anything about emotional processes, because it might be a protective schema, always on, always activated, not terminated looking back at our model. But it could also be a professional attitude, a bad postural habit, or even the compensation for the pain in the opposite knee, and many more causes we don't know. Okay, let's add another detail. We have so to look at instantaneous change in posture, make hypotheses, and seek for confirmation or disconfirmation. With this approach in mind, we can take into consideration other important muscles. Ileo-psoas, you can see here, Ileo-psoas is very interesting. In the last years, I've seen it on the internet in many articles presented as the soul muscle. Rather, it is the primal safety muscle. It is more correct. First of all, Ileo-psoas is a large muscle composed of the union of two individual muscles, the iliacus and the psoas major. Ileo-psoas is the chief flexor of the hip joint, so it allows us to reach the fetal position. It is part of the anterior muscular chain activated, as we have anticipated before, by survival fear. On the opposite side, its extension, stretching it in a proper way, the classic stretching is not the best option in this case. We have to use the alternating, similar to the first exercise that we tried together. So inhaling, exhaling, this time not rubbing but stretching the muscles and contracting and releasing it. There is a technique we have developed called isometric motion, all about that, and I will put the link to an article explaining it again when I'll send you the recording of this webinar. And we were talking about the possibility to extend this muscle and reach a very powerful biofeedback on the emotional level too. So we are extending it, so we have a release and an advantage at a muscular level. And it's really pleasant to have that. And if we do it effectively, it's a benefit that is lasting for a long time. But also at emotional level, because we are releasing the emotion trapped in the body. So we have to remember, when we talk about survival fears, that survival fears for the humans are also exhaustion, are also chronic stress depriving us from resources. Survival fears at relational level are submission or abuse, physical or mental abuse. So it's important to consider to work on this muscle also for this kind of issues. One last tip about posture. The back of our thighs and the calves are strongly involved in chronic stress, especially in this case if there is an aggressive component. So it could be both on a physical or verbal level, so aggressive, someone aggressive toward us, or we expressing but in a conflicting way, or inhibiting our aggressiveness, both physically or verbally, and even on the positive spectrum of aggressiveness, such as agonism in a sport or at work. So in this case we have to stretch these muscles, once again with this alternance of contraction relaxation while inhaling and exhaling, that is very, very powerful for this integrative work on mind and body.